Hello and welcome to the Practical Animal Channel with me, John Beaumont. Today I have a guest on the channel who is one of the great unsung heroes of Red Kite conservation in mid Wales. They started, him and his wife, some 25 to 30 years ago. Kevin will explain, but they got together with local wildlife authorities to work with first the peregrine falcon population of the area and then red kites. When I knew them, it was the early 1990s. And although the red kite population was starting to increase, it was still very much in dire straits. But Kevin led a group of local volunteers, which grew to a band of national volunteers who would go and join the project during the breeding season, protecting nests 24 hours a day, living in caravans, and doing all they could to be as active as possible to maintain and enhance the local red kite population. The group was led by Kevin Tyrrell, and Kevin joins me now. Kevin, welcome to the channel.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for giving up your time to join us. Kevin, what was the goal of the Tregaron Kite Watch? How did it start?
It started with me being asked by the CCW, me and my father, who's passed away, God bless him, to help watch a peregrine falcon's nest up the Abergwessin mountain road, which we did. And from there, it went from the peregrines, it went on to red kites because they found there was only 2 pairs in this area and we had to protect them. And I felt we had to protect them. And when the locals heard what I was doing, they wanted to get interested in it because I was talking to the wife on a CB radio and what have you, and they were listening in. And that's how the Tregaron area of the Kite Watch started, was through the CB radio. And from there, the RSPB gave us some funding to the CCW, which gave us funding. And then it just blossomed from there. And then I met a gentleman called Percy Hammond on one of the watches that said he'd like to help the local kite watch, which he did. And God bless him, he's, he was a great guy. He brought a lot of people in from around the country, friends of his. And when his friends and other people got to hear about his friends coming to Wales to do kite watch, we were getting phone calls then asking to be volunteers, which we accepted. But when we started, it was in plastic bags under a hedge watching a peregrine nest. So I sort of got fed up with that in the wet weather and what have you. So I decided to start the kite watch good and proper and get some caravans, radio stations and other stations. And a lot of the people around this area were brilliant. They went out day and night, all night long, keeping an eye on the nests, watching that there was no cars coming around. They were brilliant. And then the people from around the country that Percy had put onto us, and then they started coming down all their holidays. They cancelled their holidays to do a kite watch every year, and it went 25 years. But then it was sort of
ran for 25 years. When did it end?
when we had the foot and mouth hit Wales, so it was a struggle, but we carried on for a bit. I mean, the locals put their money into their cars and drove round at night and looked after the birds, and we did the same. And the people from away, like Percy and the other watchers that came from all over the country.
I would like to come back to that in a minute, but before I do, I'm thinking in terms of the actual calendar and the work involved. Did the conservation work with, first of all, the peregrines and then the red kites? Was it just during the breeding season, or were there other times that you needed to be on the ground as well?
No, mate. The peregrines were all year round, and so were the kites in the end. I mean, we were going out and about making sure that the chicks were fledging, and we were watching them. As you know, there used to be poisonings and what have you, and we used to have to check the nests and what have you. If there was anything wrong, we'd let the government people know that something's been poisoned or whatever.
Kevin, could the project work today?
Pardon?
Could the project work today?
It could. As you know, on the Kite Watch, we actually had keys for the forestry. CCW got us keys for the forestry, so we could get in and out if we had to, and check on nests. If you know what I mean.
There was a similarly rare or declining bird of prey, or any other bird or mammal for that matter, that needed local attention on the ground and attention that could really make a difference, as your project did. What would you do differently if you were starting now?
Yeah, what it needs is young people to get interested in their surroundings, their environment, and stuff like that. I'd like to see a lot more deciduous woodland put back for birds. Get rid of a lot of the forestry, which is causing a lot of acid in some of the water sources.
What do you think of bird of prey conservation and bird conservation in general today? Do you think it needs a more direct approach of cross fostering, double clutching of nests so that we double egg clutches? Or do you think it needs a more habitat wide approach? What do you think of bird of prey conservation today, Kevin?
With us on the Kite Watch, they were brilliant. You know, they were hands-on, they enjoyed the work and what have you, but it's you know, the government would have to pay for it then, and they're not going to pay for that sort of thing.
Educating our youth is what is needed.
But what's needed is educating our
youth
communities to keeping an eye on birds and what have you. Unless younger people get educated and what have you to help these animals, the birds and the environment, you know, you've got to educate people to do that.
It's interesting that you've mentioned a couple of times the potential role of young people in bird of prey conservation. There seems to be in colleges of further education, higher education, and land-based colleges all over the country, a plethora of wildlife conservation courses and animal welfare courses. How can young people become involved and do their bit for bird of prey conservation nowadays? I mean, we were in caravans every summer with our telescopes trained upon active nest sites. Could that work today with young people, or would they expect different outcomes and input?
Dedicated to what they believe.
Yeah. If they're dedicated to what they believe, they can do it, John. It takes full dedication. I mean, 25 years, and you know, it was a lot of it was tiring work.
apart from dedication and commitment, if there's somebody who's physically fit and knowledgeable about decreasing numbers and the conservation status of a bird of prey, or any bird for that matter, what other qualities does a conservationist, a field biologist, a field naturalist need nowadays if they're going to do what you did 25 years ago?
Respect.
A lot, mate. I think respect and that of the wildlife is what you need.
What advice, Kevin, have you got for an aspiring conservationist who wants to get out there, has a bit of a sense of mission, wants to make a difference, and wants to do it with a particularly rare or endangered animal or bird? What advice have you got for them, though, somebody listening to this who wants to start their own conservation project?
Well, the thing is,
Believe in what you're doing.
believe in what you're doing at first. That is your first thing.
Push through no matter what.
And make sure that you can fund what you're doing. Focus. You need to focus on what you're doing.
Kevin Tyrrell, Elaine and Sally in the background. Wales
Right.
is Unsung, Red Kite, Conservationists. Thank you very much for being on the Practical Animal channel.